You're with the Current and Purple Current, and I am chatting with PaviElle. PaviElle, since the last time I spoke with you, you've had an incredible run professionally. And I'm talking about some serious accolades, things like a Jerome Artist Fellowship, McKnight, McPhail Global Artist Initiative, Schubert Club involvement. It hasn't been, we talked to you around Christmas of 2019, Sonny and I did. It hasn't been an easy couple of years for anyone, but it's been really good professionally for you. I want to congratulate you on the professional accolades and then ask you, how are you doing as a spirit, as a soul?
Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate that. And appreciate the love and the encouragement you always give me. You and Sonny both. I just really, and the Current, y'all have been supporters since Fear Not. So I thank y'all for what you've done too. I am okay. I'm doing good. I am feeling freer than I've ever felt in my life. Been doing a lot of self-work, introspective work, and seeking the path and the righteousness and the help that I need. So I feel great.
Well, that is beautiful and well-deserved. And I actually heard you in an early interview talking about taking some real time for yourself. And thank you for doing that, because if you don't take care of yourself, there's not a lot of point in you getting up on stage and doing things for other people.
That's right.
Now you are doing something for the world and putting out this release, Sovereign, which is really exciting. And from talking to you a little bit before we started rolling, it sounds like there's sovereignty in some bigger cultural ways and some identity ways, but there's also some self-sovereignty, it seems like, about your path and how you're making your art. Can you tell me a little bit about what folks can expect from this record, which is coming out on the 17th?
Well, the record it's a concept album. It's a full story that kind of chronicles everything that I've been through in 2020. And at that time, with the murder of George Floyd and the murder of Breonna Taylor and so many others, in the COVID pandemic, and being forced to have to sit with myself, I kind of just lost my voice and lost my way. And so I took the time, and like you said earlier, I was a recipient of a few grants, the Jerome and the McKnight, and I took advantage of that and took sabbaticals and bought a machine, MK3. So then with this MK3, I made all these beats. I just kind of zoned in and found my way back, and through therapy and working on myself and healing my inner child, I kind of just chronicled how I healed myself from a breakup, healed myself from all the pain and frustration and the anger and the things I was dealing with, having to be Black in this world, in having to code switch and having to put these masks on, outside of just our COVID mask. You know what I mean? Like the mask that I have to wear when I go and be around white folks in a white centered space. And the higher that I elevate, I keep having to deal with more and more racism and in white supremacist systems. You know what I mean? And it's not easier the higher you get. So I just talked about that whole thing, how I feel, politics, my life, the accountability that I need to have for myself, for the things that I did and my actions and my behaviors and the way that I handled my triggers and mismanaged my emotions. Like straight up, that is what this album is about. It's about the healing, the healer, the nurturer, the warrior, the priestess, the revolutionary, all these facets of me that I had to come back to myself and find so that I could step into my next level, being in the adolescence of my adulthood, I guess,
You give us so much powerful energy, and I know that it comes at a toll for you, especially coming into, I'm a white man, I represent a largely white media organization, and I just want to say thank you. I know that doing even the work of having this conversation and representing yourself is an uphill battle. I'm gonna say for every artist, but I think very uniquely for women, very uniquely for Black people, and
yes,
and thank you. So
thank you. Yes.
I want to put that in there. You're already dropping song titles on us, and people love music. So you threw Code Switch in, and Code Switch is one of the tracks on the new record. Can you tell me a little bit about this song, and maybe we'll give it a listen?
I outdid myself on this song. I'll say that first. Like, I can't believe that I created something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those out-of-body experiences. I remember like the day I recorded it, I came home from a session that I was working with a commercial agency that I, do commercials with. And I was so hyped from the session. And I just sat down and I started going, with the cymbal. And I just kicked it off from there. And it's all these different journeys and twists and turns all the way through the song. And then I sat down to pen it and just really thought about growing up and always knowing my purpose. Like, I've known who I am and what my purpose is since I was a child. I've never questioned it. And anytime I stray off of the path of it, things don't go right. Let's just put it that way. When I walk my path, then you see the things that have been manifesting, the blessings and the abundance and the opportunities that have been happening in my life. It's because I'm walking my path and I'm honoring my truth, right? So I started talking about that growing up and being around being around a village, being around Rondo, and understanding who I was and learning who I was through the people that my mom put me around, through the way that my mom calculated other people pouring into me what she couldn't, and giving me different perspectives and different understandings of my artistry, letting me be free, letting me find myself, and understanding that I've always known who I am. And the world wants me to continue to come into these spaces and act a certain way and be about respectability politics and what I'm told I'm supposed to do through the reinforcement of me being myself all the way through school and, just growing up and understanding every time I'm myself, I get penalized for that. And how do I deal with that? Because I'm still going to be myself and I'm going to keep being myself and this isn't going to stop. So like really trying to deal with that frustration of people trying to put me in a box and all this stuff. And I talk through this whole song, sing this whole song, rap this whole song, and it just keeps getting higher and higher to the point where I'm getting ready to blow. And then I get free. And then I tell it what like in TI is, like my mama would say. I tell everything about what it's like to have to assume another's culture because my culture is not the standard to them. But it's the standard to me, and I need to work that out. I need to decolonize. I need to figure out how and what my standards are as a Black person and as a person who knows my DNA now. And I know that I'm 38% Nigerian. I know I'm 75% West African and 25% Irish. So I know my history and what it is that I come from. It's all these things. Everything is aligned, And so that song just really, it's like me busting out. It's like me having a proclamation and saying, yeah, I've been through something really terrible through this last year, just like you all. And, I'm going through the same things you all face. And so sometimes I can't speak because I'm processing it on my feet. I didn't even mean to rhyme like that. That was weird. I'm telling you, I'm in creative mode.
PaviElle's like, listen, I'm rapping and now that's all I do. I don't care if I'm at the grocery store. I have just rap. Let's get into this song. Right. I am so excited to hear this statement in musical form. So let's check out Code Switch with PaviElle. Thanks for being tuned into The Current and Purple Current. You're listening to The Current and Purple Current, and we're chatting with PaviElle. And PaviElle, you got a show coming up to celebrate the release of this new record. It's on Friday, September 17th, over at Icehouse in Minneapolis. Now, I know that you've done a little bit of during the pandemic performing, including a pretty early one at Icehouse, like with zero crowd. Mm-hmm. As you start to get in front of more crowds, including at Icehouse, what have you missed not being around crowds for much of this last year?
Oh, the energy, the energy by mid-show, the way that we take the audience there, and that feeling, I miss that. I miss that a whole bunch. Just the celebration of life that we give when we do our show and when I'm with the guys. Yeah, I really do.
I'm glad you brought up the guys. You ride really hard for your band. I think it's a big part of every vocalist's puzzle to have a band that supports them. But there's some vocalists that don't even know the name of their drummer, right? They just go, it's in C sharp. The drummer doesn't even have to know that. This is very different with you. You've had close to the same cast of people rolling with you for the grand majority of the last decade and beyond. Tell me about your band and why they're so central to your identity as an artist.
They are my family. I've been playing with most of them for so long. They've known me since I was a kid. And so that's, like me, Tayo and Ahanti and I were in Edupoetic Interbrainment together. And I was 16, when I first joined that group. And Ahanti and Tayo are my family. It's my brother and my cousin. And, Nick Dodd, the drummer, I've been playing with him since I was 19. Me and him started playing with Billy Holloman.
All right.
Back at Dixie's.
Little B3
ago.
organ nights and shit.
Yes, with Big John Dickerson and all them. Yeah. Johnny Hodges. Hey, we was in there. Yeah, H. Baker. It was live. But they've known me since I was a kid. And Tech, we've been playing with, I think, 8 years, as long as the band has been this iteration.
Yeah.
And James Towns has been with us, I think 3-4 years now. So, we've been rocking together for so long. And they've been riding this, this roller coaster with me of like the adventure of my career. And we've been just so tight and so together that I can trust them, so that I can be an artist and I can go to that space that I need to, because I know that they got me. So like whatever happens, and, when I click off and I go to that place, they know how to hold it down. I don't have to worry about checking in, making sure people are not just going back to the hook and just doing whatever, because I've been, you've been part of that, where it's like people just play whatever and they don't read the room or read what's going on, and that we're trying to vibe right now. And they pick that kind of stuff up with me, because I'm so about improv, and they just ride. I think that's so integral to all musicians, that you play with people that work with you and not against you.
Well, you're lucky. Lucky is the wrong word. You got a really good band behind you, and that's a lot of your work and a lot of their work. And it's a really special thing to view, and very, very cool that that'll be on display at Icehouse. To tell you the truth, PaviElle, on the Current and Purple Current, we play a fair amount of artists from St. Paul, but it's not every artist that I always back sell going, that's the pride of St. Paul right there. But that's something I always say when I'm playing you. And it's not just because you're from St. Paul, and it's not just because you've made most of your career here in St. Paul. You've given a lot of your energy and a lot of your spirit to this city, and to celebrating the city, and celebrating the Rondo neighborhood in particular, and celebrating the Black community in St. Paul in particular. So as a fellow St. Paul resident, first, I just want to say thank you, because I know it's not for a check. I know you're not like, I'm going to work hard for St. Paul. Like and even we talked about your career, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. And you talked about how that's a priority. The here-ness, the St. Paulness is a priority. And I'd like to hear about that in general. And I also hope you can touch on a little work that I know that you and Tish Jones have been involved in recently, in making sure that Black people are at the center of whatever is going to happen with the Rondo neighborhood. So I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about St. Paul, but also about that work. And I know we don't want to get into it too much. It's a joint effort, but I'm just curious for the folks listening.
So the Rondo community, it's everything that I am, you know what I mean? And it should be historically preserved in that way. And it should be looked at in that way. Those towns that they have in the East Coast, and they have all those signs and stuff for some of those old streets and, places that they've preserved and things of that nature. It should be treated in that same type of way. And that's why I honor it so much. And I talk about it so much, because people don't understand what it was like to have a freeway ran through your neighborhood, and through the soul in the center of your neighborhood. And then the things that happen after that, the after effects of having, a freeway split your neighborhood, and, things turning into, different sects of the neighborhood, and different, places, and socioeconomic standards, and all this other stuff. People don't understand how much trauma and violence that inflicts upon a people. And, even though there has been an atonement in, words, there hasn't been an atonement in repatriation or land, or, things that we lost collectively, And so that's one of the centers of my artistry, because it's just one of the centers of my life, because my mom and dad were activists in that community. And so that's just what I seen. And anything that my mom did, for the most part, I was trying to do too. Like she was the model. You know what I'm saying? She was
Yeah,
the one. And
yeah.
so it was like, okay, I see my mom going up in here and making change and just watching my mom make change, and taking the initiative along with other community members like Metro Giles and the Giles family, and and Raquette CSR, or Katie Royce and David Wild and Julie Cruz and like all these folks that my mom worked with throughout the community to just make it better for the people that were there. It's like, how could you not do that? Or how could you not at least use your power or your platform in however you can, to tell people that we are here, and we are still here, even though the neighborhood has been gentrified, twice, because this is not the first time. The first time was the early 90s when I was a kid. Yeah, post crack era, all that, and Mississippi Market and all that stuff came. So, like things were just slowly happening all this time. And, Tish and so many others in the community, because it's quite a few co-leaders involved with the Preserve Rondo efforts. We just want to make sure that the people stay at the center of whatever happens, and that it is what the people want and what the people need. And really thinking about, is it reasonable to invest, $500 million into a land bridge that is owned by the state, as opposed to investing that into the community that stands and investing that where it needs to go, with the people, with the taxpayers and the citizens of that community and those communities adjacent to it, the Frogtown, Lexham, East Side communities. Yeah, it's real.
It is very real. Also very real. Your doorbell rang. Do you need a minute?
It's a package.
Okay.
It's a package because I got clothes coming for my gig in San Fran.
Oh, wait. Just a humble brag for your gig in San Fran. What are you playing in San Francisco?
I am playing the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. I get to go play a Requiem for Zula for their annual concert, and I get to do a residency alongside Michi Wianco. So she's going to do some co-leading with me and stuff, because it's like my first residency, and I get to go in and workshop the piece that we're going to do with SPCO in January. The piece I was commissioned by the Sands family to do for their anniversary, called Sands of Time. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to go sleep that weekend because I'm flying out the morning after the Icehouse, the album release. So
San Francisco, you are lucky, because PaviElle is an absolute treasure. You cannot keep her. We need her back in St. Paul because we love her. PaviElle, the show is on the 17th. The first tune you sent the current is a monster tune. I'm curious if the machine played into it, because it had a little different of a groove than I've heard before from PaviElle, and also an intensity in delivery. And you've always been very frank about who you are, where you come from, and your feelings about Black liberation. This still feels like another level up. Before we get this tune in and say goodbye to you for the day, can you tell us a little bit about the track Rights?
So Rights, it was like the second or third track I created, and I had thought about it right around the election time. The words, started forming in my head. So when I kind of went at this in January or whatever and finished it up, I created it on a machine. And it's the whole track is the machine. And then I added James Towns to come in and play the bass. I added Ahanti Young to come in and play the djembe. And I added Ted Godbout come in and put some piano on it. So there was just like things that I was needing to fatten up and what I was hearing. And it was so cool because I got to like arrange and be like, this is what I need. And I would just sing it or just be like, work it through with the musicians and stuff. Cause I kind of work a little differently. I don't do sheet music. I don't read sheet music. I just do music. So like, it was awesome to be able to get my point across and to really get what I want without being able to do music speak like that. It's sharpening my skills for the things that I'm doing too. But overall, I just think Rights for me was really about the election. It was really, that's why I say I'm not excited and dancing in the streets. because I still have the same problems of yesterday, tomorrow, right in front of me. Ain't nothing changed. Same bag, different groceries. And so, like, just as I said that, I just wrote it down because I've seen all them people dancing and all the people in the streets on the news and just the coverage of it. And I was just like, what are you doing? This is status quo. This was, to the Democratic Party, the safe choice. And to me, it was them saying, well, we don't have your back. And so it got me thinking, like, what have you all done? Nothing, right? So you do the work of undoing the laws that empower y'all and disfranchise the marginalized, because and it seems to me now, after a 500-year fight for personal liberties and humanity and rights, those rights are ours. We have them. It's just white supremacy infringes on our rights, right? And so I'm looking at it from that standpoint, where, like, you're infringing upon what it is that's my personal freedom. You're infringing upon it. It's not that there is nothing wrong with being who I am in this world. Like, all of the messages reinforced through television and media, all these things that they tell you as you grow up that are anti-Black sentiment. These things are wrong. These things are not true. And I don't need to continue to tell people that I'm a human being. And, like, it's so violent, for me to have to say that. It's so stupid, And I'm like, nah, you're just infringing on my rights. You can't give me my rights. They're mine. How does that work? So that's, like, really the thoughts that were going on through my head as I was writing it. And that's, listen to the words I say. You have no ownership of me. You cannot give me my rights. You can't continue to have this patriarchal relationship that, the government and white folks that are supremacist and that feel like they have, the right to oppress and the right to tell us that we have to conform and assimilate, like, no, that's for you. And you want to do that, you want to live like that. But that's not for me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, for you to take all of that and turn into a song is a really impressive step, and also a valuable step, because a lot of people take their medicine better in a song, and getting those things through. Thank you for making this music. Thank you for getting another record out. It's called Sovereign, and the release party is on Friday, September 17th over at Icehouse. PaviElle, every time I speak to you, it is an honor. Every time I get to hear you crack a microphone, it is an honor. And I thank you for all the work you're doing. I thank you for all your enthusiasm. And I thank you for taking time for yourself and still making a record for us, in the world when it was time to do it. So
that's right. It was time. You said it. It was time. Thank you.